She was brilliant, she was beautiful, and she was dangerous. Cleopatra VII, the last pharaoh of Egypt, wasn't just a queen, she was a strategist, a linguist, a seductress, and a survivor. For centuries, she's been painted as the woman who brought mighty men to their knees. But behind the myths and the Hollywood glamour lies the truth. Cleopatra was much more than a lover of Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. She was a political genius who fought to keep Egypt alive in the jaws of Rome's empire. This is the untold story of Cleopatra. Cleopatra wasn't Egyptian by blood. She was Macedonian Greek, a descendant of Ptolemy, one of Alexander the Great's generals, who had taken control of Egypt 300 years before her birth. But unlike her Ptolemaic ancestors, Cleopatra made a radical choice. She embraced Egypt. She learned to speak Egyptian fluently, the first of her dynasty to do so. In fact, Cleopatra is said to have spoken 9 languages, from Greek and Latin to Hebrew and Aramaic. Imagine being a teenage girl, suddenly inheriting one of the wealthiest kingdoms in the world, while surrounded by enemies who want you dead. That was Cleopatra's reality when she became queen at just 18, alongside her younger brother, Ptolemy XIII. But power sharing wasn't exactly in her blood. Quickly, the 2 siblings turned into rivals. A civil war brewed, and Cleopatra needed a powerful ally. Enter Julius Caesar, Rome's most powerful man. In 48 BCE, Caesar arrived in Alexandria chasing his rival Pompey, who had fled to Egypt, but what he found was chaos. Cleopatra had been exiled by her brother and was desperate to reclaim her throne. This is where Cleopatra's legend begins. She famously had herself smuggled into Caesar's palace. Some say inside a rolled-up carpet, others say a linen sack, to meet him in secret. Picture it. A young queen, risking her life, sneaking into the chambers of the most feared man in the world. Caesar was captivated, not just by her beauty, but by her intelligence, her charm, and her vision. With Caesar's military might, Cleopatra crushed her brother's forces and regained her throne. Soon, she gave birth to a son, Ptolemy XV, nicknamed Caesarea, meaning Little Caesar. But here's the twist. Caesar never officially recognized the boy as his heir. Back in Rome, whispers spread like wildfire. The Egyptian queen had ensnared Caesar. Cleopatra was not just a queen now, she was a player in Rome's dangerous political game. In 44 BC, everything changed. Julius Caesar was assassinated on the Ides of March, stabbed 23 times by his own senators. Cleopatra, now in Rome with her young son, fled back to Egypt. The man who had protected her was gone, but Cleopatra wasn't done. She watched as Rome descended into chaos. 2 men rose from the ashes of Caesar's death. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir, and Mark Antony, his loyal general. Cleopatra knew her survival depended on choosing wisely, and when she sailed to meet Mark Antony, she did it in legendary style. Picture this. Cleopatra's royal barge floating down the river Tarsus, its sails soaked in purple dye, shimmering gold oars gliding through the water, her dressed as the goddess Aphrodite. Ancient writers say Antony was stunned. Cleopatra wasn't just making an entrance, she was declaring herself divine. Antony fell under her spell. But it wasn't just love, it was politics. Together, Cleopatra and Antony formed an alliance that shook Rome. He needed her wealth and Egypt's resources to challenge Octavian. She needed his protection to keep her throne. For nearly a decade, they lived like gods. Cleopatra bore Antony 3 children. They threw lavish feasts where guests supposedly drank wine worth millions. But behind the glitter was a war machine. Cleopatra supplied Antony with money, grain, and ships, enough to make Octavian terrified. Rome painted her as the ultimate villain, a manipulative temptress who had bewitched Antony and threatened the Roman way of life. Octavian launched a smear campaign, calling her a foreign which who sought to rule Rome itself. In 31 BCE, everything came to a head at the Battle of Actium, one of history's greatest naval battles. Octavian's fleet clashed with Antony and Cleopatra's forces, but disaster struck. Cleopatra's ships retreated, Antony followed, and Octavian claimed victory. Soon after, Octavian invaded Egypt. As his army stormed Alexandria, Antony, broken and betrayed, took his own life. Cleopatra, now facing the reality of being paraded as a prisoner in Rome, made her final move. Legend says she allowed a venomous asp, a snake, to bite her. Others say she poisoned herself with a hidden needle. However it happened, Cleopatra chose her death. At just 39 years old, the last pharaoh of Egypt was gone. Cleopatra's death marked the end of an era. Egypt fell under Roman rule, and her son Caesar was executed by Octavian. Yet her story lived on. For centuries, she's been remembered as a seductress, a femme fatale. But in truth, she was much more. Cleopatra was a ruler who spoke to her people in their own tongue. She was a strategist who played the world's most dangerous empire against itself. She was a woman who defied stereotypes, taking power in a world dominated by men. Even today, more than 2,000 years later, Cleopatra remains one of the most fascinating figures in history. Was she a queen who destroyed empires, or a genius who fought to save her own? The answer might just be both. And maybe that's why her name will never be forgotten.